Hey, and welcome to a new video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe.
Heyo, it's me Daniel today, and also you're joined by Tazi, known as
Yep, Ryoma Tazi.
Ryoma Tazi. So yeah, you can check his work out. I always have link in description, and usually the last couple of minutes or 5 minutes I show off a bit more of your work as well. Um, yeah, so yeah, tell me about a bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am a artist. I don't want to say concept artist or visual development because I do a lot of different stuff, but I've been doing art for the entertainment industry for 8+ years. I've worked with companies like Hasbro, Riot Games, Hi-Res, S2, Frostburn, just like a lot of random assortment of companies. And I've worked in the studio over with Hi-Res as well as, you know, doing a lot of like even startups companies. So I kind of have like this range of small to large scale projects that I've been a part of. So, and
Awesome.
yeah, I like to be doing art for all types part of the production. So that's who
Awesome.
I am.
Well, that's really cool. It's cool that you yeah, you like to do different things. I see on your page that you're not just a concept artist. You've got like a few categories there that you are a
hmm
part of. Um, yeah, do you like have different portfolios for applying to those kind of jobs?
Yeah, I mean, usually when I get contacted, they either see something from my portfolio, or sometimes I send out a specific portfolio page of like, hey, I want to be a concept for characters, or maybe I want to do stuff for weapons, or hey, I want to do some stuff for animation. So there's a lot of random assortment of stuff that I can kind of showcase that I'm capable of doing. And sometimes that ultimately kind of guides people when they're looking to kind of for my services. Say, hey, do you want to do some like art directing stuff or art directing consulting for their project? Because since I've been engaged with all parts of production, I know how it kind of works, and I feel like I can help a lot within that area.
Awesome. So do you feel more of a like what's the one a trick of all trades per se?
Um, Kind of a trick of all trades, but I'm using one medium to
Mm.
explore all those different avenues, right? Like,
Mm.
so even though I'm going down to animation, I'm still drawing.
Yeah.
Even if I'm doing environments, I'm still drawing.
Mm.
So it's like I have this one blade that I'm using that I'm keep on sharpening, but then I can do so much with that.
Yeah. Well, it is awesome. You can paint so much. You can, paint for video games, or you could paint the characters. Yeah, it's just really cool. I enjoy it myself. Painting a range of things. I've gone from like simple drawings to more like complicated books and things like that. So it's always interesting to explore.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's like we. I don't know about you, but like I feel like I jumped into art because it was a creative thing that you can kind of explore all these different ways of kind of expressing. Because it's like it's just a form of language.
Mm.
So it's like it's kind of natural that I would want to see all the different avenues of what art can how art can express and mess around with that. But also keeping in mind that I have to have a skill that I need to work on because a jack of all trades is kind of like a jack of all of none, right? Like it's
Mm.
like you don't want to have skills developed in a very small degree in a lot of different areas because then that way not a lot of people would really, I guess, recognize that or see the value in your
Mm.
what you were able to do. So it's a kind of a balancing mix, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, each their own. I mean, some people actually work out to be jack of all trades. And
Yeah, and
yeah.
sometimes it's super helpful. I'm sorry to interrupt that,
It's
but
all
like
good.
small in a small team, right? Like
Hmm.
you need a jack of all trades
Yeah.
because you got to wear multiple hats. But sorry, continue your thought.
Yeah, yeah. Like what you're saying, you gotta wear multiple hats
hmm
in those small companies. Um, yeah, something I discussed before. Like being in this small studio versus like a big studio. With a big studio, you're obviously, you're just like one person in there doing like the characters
Yeah,
or something.
exactly.
It's the same with like, comparing it to small factories and big factories. With small factories,
Yeah, yeah.
they'll give you a job 1 week and then they'll move you somewhere else to do this. But in a bigger factory, you're kind of just doing that one thing all the time usually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's strange, and it's like I feel like, as an artist, I'm always kind of questioning, like, what do I want to be? Do I want to be a Swiss Army knife,
Mm.
but can't really do like the heavy duty stuff, or do I want to be just this one tool that does this one thing? And I feel like I need a little bit of a mix of both, Like I want to be self-sufficient where I can go on doing a lot of different stuff, but I do realize that it's important to have a single skill that you're really kind of developing and mastering.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you do in your own kind of way. So you draw and paint everything. Yeah, which is really cool. So you're always solving problems with painting.
hmm
Which is, yeah, it's like sharpening your knife. I mean, I'm the same. I pretty much solve all my problems with painting and illustrating something. Whether right now you see me doing the last bits of page 14, the last book of my page.
hmm
Yeah, and that's gone along quite big. That's been 6-7 months since I've been doing that project. It's been quite a while
Nice.
doing that project when I actually picked it up and started it and actually have finished it. So I've been working. I've been slowly chewing through it as well.
Awesome, man. Well, I commend you for continuing on a long-term project like that, and then finally coming to an end. Usually, it's really difficult for an artist to finish projects. So, yeah, man, kudos to you, man. That's really awesome.
For yourself, what's your biggest project?
Biggest project. I mean, what do you mean? Like biggest project in terms of like long term, like for time, or do
Yeah,
you mean like
time. The
the
longest
scope
time.
of it?
Yeah, the longest
S-
time you spent on a project.
Longest time I spent on a project. I mean, I don't want to sound cheesy, but like I've ultimately myself. I mean, I'm the longest project continuously working on my skills, but like for at least an assignment, I would probably say like a year.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a part of me that I like to create all the problem solving stuff in the beginning. Like that's why like concept artists, I generally kind of got attracted to that position because you're figuring the design and the moves in the very beginning of the production, your pre-production, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
once it gets into the execution stage, like there's nothing really much more to kind of problem solve unless but there's things that bumps up in the way, like oh hey, we don't have enough resources here, or hey, we have a technical limitation, and those are things you got to problem solve.
Hmm.
But it's not enough to feel engaging to me. So usually, like I like to be in the first part of the production, and then figure all the stuff out, get a good plan, and get some theories of how to execute, and then once that's done, then a team of artists that's ready to execute really well takes that and then problem solve along the way. So yeah,
Awesome.
that's usually kind of like my go-to.
Do you prefer smaller projects?
It's not that I prefer smaller projects. I mean, it depends, right? Like, what does the project, how is it going to fulfill me as a person? So, smaller projects, like I said about like my interest of kind of creating an idea or a plan to kind of be executed is definitely fun. But if a project is something that it seems like I'm really going into the depths of my, awareness as a person and kind of like pushing my boundaries, I feel like it doesn't matter if it's a small project or a large project.
Mm.
It's something that's worthwhile. And I think that usually, like for especially like bigger companies, when they those bigger IPs, they find a structure, they find a way to make money, and it's not there's not much innovation left to be made. And it's kind of like a bittersweet moment for me, because it's like, oh hey, yeah, we figured it out. But then it's like, dang, but now it's like there's nothing else to figure out. Like now it's just make as much money and capitalize on it. So yeah, I mean, it's in terms of like the size of the project, I don't think that matters. I think it's just as long as there's room for development, even for me as a person, for the team, and for, you know, our the limitations of our perception on the world or whatever, you know, there as long as we're pushing on some boundary, I think that's what really matters to me.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean, I've done many kinds of projects with usually personal. I've done a few freelance stuff, which has been alright, and that's been quite interesting to actually, you know, go back and forth, you know, tweaking it and finishing it off. Do you do you move? Do you work on multiple things at a time, or?
Yeah, I think that juggling a couple of projects here and there is good. I mean, obviously you have your limits, and I've definitely felt my limits. I remember mentioning before at another place where I was talking about like me in California, and I was juggling like 7, 8 projects at the time, and that was stressful. It was good. I mean, I learned a lot, but it was definitely stressful. And I think that yeah, I mean, there's a mix. You know, once you find your limitation, and once you know that there's a number of projects you can't get past, and you found that sweet spot, I think that's when I function. You know, at least me as a person, I function the best. Because if I'm working on just one thing, you know, it's like when you're working on a painting, right? Like sometimes you need a break because you're looking at it for too long and you're overthinking something. So for me, like I like to have a break that's still productive. So I would like to work on something else. So that's the reason why I like to have multiple things going at once.
Yeah, it's definitely good to, you know, still have a break that's, you know, still productive.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I do.
It's like a.
What are you saying?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying sometimes I do get tempted to just, you know, have a break. Most of the time, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just knowing yourself. You know, like, do I need to just sit down and do nothing, or do I need to work on another project? And maybe in the process of working on something else, I'll learn the solution for the other project that I'm working on. So it's, you know, it's a juggling act of projects. It's a juggling act of your emotions and feelings and what you need as a person. So, you know, art is such a it can be very frustrating, but I love it because it really kind of teaches me how to better function as a human being.
I mean, yeah, it's challenging. It's you know, it's the kind of truth about it. It's always challenging. It's not, you know, easy. It's not just painting what you want, kind of a thing. You always have to develop, and you always have to, you know, do things that you may, yeah, you might still be interested in, but you may, like you said, like pushing yourself, you know, going against.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to do that, but if you do it, you may actually gain something from it. You know.
I know, man. It's crazy because like a lot of like methods or a mindset is so contextual, right? Like for example, like I could say like, oh, you know, you need to just kind of plow through. You need to just put force, and then you'll find the answers. And sometimes that's the case, but there's some moments where you need to take a step back. And I guess that's with art, and as within life, it's so you just need to know when to use a certain method for a certain time or conditions. And it's so complicated, and it can be so convoluted because, for example, you may find a method that brought you so much joy for a moment, right? And it's almost kind of like a positive trauma. You want to keep that with you, so you overuse that method, even when it's not needed, because you're looking for that initial like nostalgia of joy that you had when you first implemented that. And it's like, no. This moment requires entirely, totally different process. You need to really think about it. And it's like, what do you actually need for this moment? And that's a very difficult thing for a person to do. You know, we often make that mistakes. I think that's why there's a lot of conflict right now and a misunderstanding. But yeah, I mean that's why I like art. It's so real. It slaps you in the face if you do things wrong. It doesn't sugarcoat it for you. You make a mistake and that's it. You know, you can't hide that fact. So it's really humbling, and I really like art for that reason.
Awesome. Yeah, so what's been the most fun project for you to work on?
What's been the best fun project? Well, when the project, it's usually what is, you know, the building blocks, or maybe like, what am I trying to say? I guess what real ultimately is like the team dynamic is a very big important thing. So you could be working on a very kind of like crazy and complicated project, but if you have a great team, you know, and you're learning. I mean, I think great projects are the ones where you are learning, and there's a lot of like positive development. So for me, it doesn't matter if I'm like working on like, yo, look at this. I like Gundam, and I'm working on the next Gundam thing. No, no, no. It's like, does the environment on which I'm creating this project help develop me positively, right? And sometimes that comes from the team. Sometimes that comes from the challenges of what the thesis may be of the project is, or sometimes it's just how I'm being conditioned as a person when I have to learn a different technique for this type of art style or whatever. So it's really kind of like it's. I know it sounds cheesy, and you hear this before, but it's the process. It really is the process, and hopefully, if the process is great, the project, usually that's the case. Usually the project, because of the process is so great, the project will be also great.
Yeah, I mean it's you know, if you're working with someone that might be annoying or something, you know, it's not that great an environment, you can't get anything done. Then you know
But
it's
you
like
know, yeah, I'm sorry, but I have to comment on the annoying thing. Like, it's like,
yeah.
yeah, sometimes there are annoying people, but it's like, but you know what's really cool about like meeting people like that is that it's like, you know, why am I being agitated by this? And then you try to like find common ground or something that kind of resolves that. And sometimes I jump in a little too far in, because like I love to connect with people. And sometimes you know, sometimes when someone being annoying, it's like, hey, what's going on, you know, like it's like, oh, they're just hungry and they're just cranky. You know, and I just need to take a step back. But yeah, like you know, it doesn't like, we have such crazy expectations, right? Like as people, as artists, where it's like you want to find that perfect team, right? But I think that doesn't really exist.
Exactly.
I think what really, yeah, no, I think everyone has their problems and stuff like that. But when you find a team that you are able to work with and they work with you, and you both develop and you both find a better balance for yourself at the end of the day, I think that's what's really cool. At least for a team, like, you know, or a huge team setting, or a more intimate team setting.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, everyone's got their own characters, and you know, some of us might get on our nerves sometimes, but it's interesting to, you know, put that to one side and actually get to know the other people, and
Yeah.
their, you know, their little problems, or what they're struggling with and things like that. Yeah, it's
But
just
sometimes they give you an answer, right? They give you an answer for something, and you're like, whoa, I would have never seen the world that way. So yeah, it's really cool.
awesome. Have you worked in studios or mostly at home?
Yeah, yeah. I worked over at a high res, or it was over in Georgia, and you know that it's a mix of positive and negative experiences, which I think that's what comes from anything, anywhere. But yeah, that was my big kind of like experience with that, and also working with a team. I was definitely a part of a bigger project where I felt like, you know, I was a cog in the wheel. And then I also worked on a smaller project for a new IP for that company that was a much more intimate team setting. So it was really interesting that I was able to experience both within that company.
Well, that'd be awesome. What did you prefer? What one did you prefer? Or?
It's at first I was like definitely more on the lower. So the I think both I have found that there was really cool people in the
Mm.
teams, right? Like that, it's high res is crazy because it's like there's just talented, talented people, and I think because this company is just growing, and then there's a lot of stuff happening outside externally within the industry, it's very hard to create a cohesive product, and you really utilizing everyone's skills. So I think hopefully that they'll get better at it. But I think that what I have found that drawn me to liking a certain type of conditions or experience is just having like a team that trusts each other.
Mm.
And it's difficult, right, when things are stressful and chaotic, and then you got to meet a deadline, or maybe finances are not as great, there's not enough resources. It's unfortunate that people kind of go back to their like kind of like fear or insecurities, and then all of a sudden everything gets kind of mixed up, and no one trusts each other, and then all of a sudden the project is also failing because of it. And for me, I think when you're in an environment where the people really care about how you're doing as a person instead of as a tool,
Mhm.
I think that's when, I think that's what I really enjoy. And intimate in a smaller team setting, I feel like it's much easier to kind of maintain a healthy team chemistry. And because like I was like part of this new IP, and I was working with this guy Saman Tamasabi. He was awesome guy. Like we were both kind of pretty much art directing the next game, and we were also not only thinking about the art style, we're also thinking about, well, how's everybody?
Mm.
And we used to have like we had meetings almost every night on discussing every person on what their challenges and what they need as a person. And I saw the fruits of the labor of like how effective that was.
Mm.
More focused on the people than the art in itself. And then once we started going on a crazy production, and then things got a little hectic, and then we got moved to another place, like then like things started to kind of go too, it was too hard to maintain at that point. So it's really interesting to me that I'm really grateful that Hi-Res gave me that perspective and also that experience to be able to learn that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I remember back in course when we were kind of getting to the finish of our projects. And we'd had this like meeting. There was no teacher. The teacher had something else to do. Checking stuff. So it was just us. And we held a meeting anyway. It was like, well, we didn't really need to hold one because the teacher wasn't there, but we held one in there, and we actually sat there and just chatted and discussed things for like an hour or two. And it was really good to get all that stuff out, and just to just to share our experiences, how we go in and everything like that. It really was helpful
Yeah.
for the project to keep moving forward. Um, hmm.
Yeah, it's I mean, like, I guess that's why, like, working with great people like that are invested in your future as well as as you are to them.
Hmm.
I think that's when the magic happens. It's like, yeah, the product could be beautiful and all that stuff like that, but you, at the end of the day, when the project is done, you're gonna bring so much with you after that experience. And I think that's what ultimately I'm really looking for. It's just kind of constant positive development
Hmm.
for myself.
Awesome. Uh, yeah. So awesome. It's been I mean, we still got what 20-ish minutes. It's yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we can talk about anything, man. I'm ready to go.
Do you have anything to ask me?
Well, I mean, since we're here and like you and I were both kind of like searching as an artist on something. That's what I feel like. And I guess what I want to ask you is like for you, fulfillment is usually what we are trying to gain
Hmm.
when we're creating art. And what is that fulfillment that you're seeking and why?
Well, I think for me, I want to, put a smile on a kid's face, because I like creating like books and things, and yeah, I'd like to actually teach children from actually creating in these books and things. I don't just want to create a nice story and nice illustrations and everything, but I also want to teach something as well,
Yeah.
to the kids,
Hmm.
because I feel like that time of reading books, whether it's sharing the story with your mum, or just
Hmm.
you know reading it with your mate, or just reading it alone. You always there's
Yeah.
always something to learn, and sometimes there might be something in the book um, that can relate to what's happening in your life sometimes, which is something interesting. Um,
That's
that,
awesome, man. That's
that's
really awesome.
that's one thing I'd like to get out there. These books to for kids to enjoy. Um,
Yeah.
the other thing I'm also
There's
working.
a
Sorry,
no, no. Go ahead. Sorry.
I
No,
say what
continue
you're
your thought.
saying.
Well, I mean, so I was just gonna say, like, I have a friend, a good friend. His name's Dylan, and something that we discussed together was that you want to find stuff that resonate with people, and I really love that word because it's like you're expressing this feeling, and it just interacts with other people to where they see or feel almost the same thing, and then hopefully they feel like they have a better perspective afterwards. So that's really cool, man. That you're trying to create like this narrative experience through these these books that you can read together, like for kids and stuff. Because like it's tough, right? Like the life is tough, and you kind of you bump yourself, and you find these different things for yourself that work, and sometimes it doesn't work, and you just want to share your findings,
Hmm.
back to society, I guess. I definitely feel the same way.
Hmm. Awesome. Yeah, no, also doing this YouTube channel as well. With that, I'm just trying to help other artists grow and learn from
Yeah.
all sorts of perspectives of life, because I'm not just chatting to people that are just in the industry. Also, I chat with people that like might be doing like course and things, um, and just
Yeah.
starting their kind of process of their painting, because I believe there's something to learn from every kind of artist, really. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we're all trying to figure this out. I mean, like like, for me, like that's for anybody that's listening. Like you take what everything is said with a grain of salt, because you got to know when to use it.
Mm.
What we're experiencing, and to and I appreciate like people like you that are kind of coming over here and trying to spread the experiences around so that it could help people, because that's I mean, it's super helpful. Like I don't know why I'm like lost with words, but it's just like it's it's so difficult. Art can be so difficult, and I think art is so directly tied to life experiences.
Mm.
So it's just kind of like a medium where we can discuss life in a way, but it's through art, because that's the way that we understand it. And yeah, dude, I'm really grateful and appreciative that you're taking the time out
Mm.
of your life to to share everything with this for the world. It's really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean it's not easy. Like, I mean, right now I have to get up early to discuss things at the moment, and I mean that's the way it is with because I live in New Zealand. I've got to kind of work out time zones, um,
Mm,
and that kind of is the only. There's like two decent times for me. It's like early morning or late night because of my daughter's like asleep, so it's kind of the perfect time for me. Um, so it's challenging. I'm dealing with both being a father and yeah,
Well,
just
hey
where
man,
I
your
am.
your efforts are noted, dude, and much appreciated, dude.
Yeah, I mean it's great just to also spend some time with my daughter. I quite enjoy that. I try and paint on my weekends because it's the main time that I do get to paint. Um, but most sometimes I do have to like do an hour of painting or something, and then go play with my daughter for a little bit, and then come back to it.
Hmm.
But it's quite challenging, but it's cool to actually keep going. Um, I learned quite a few things um, from doing that.
Yeah,
From
well,
yeah.
I mean, that's cool. And like, do you ever kind of like draw from, your experiences with, with your family, with your daughter, like, because something that comes to mind is like sometimes we jump into art because there's a void in our life, right?
Hmm.
But I would hope that most artists at a certain point they develop where they're now drawing from experiences
Hmm.
and not because they're looking for something, or not looking for something that's missing
Hmm.
in their life, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, like, tell me, your experiences of like being a father, and then also having, these two avenues where you can really experience life in a totally different way.
Hmm. Yeah, it's quite cool because she's only just like started to kind of walk, which is really cool.
Hmm.
Um,
That's
so
awesome.
she'll come to me and be like, oh, I'll hold her hands and she'll start walking with me, which is really cool. Even like just looking at her and being like, oh, that's how a baby stands. Um, that can be helpful with if I'm drawing something that's similar to kind of what a baby's kind of structure is in these paintings, or something that's standing up, that could be helpful to be like, oh, I remember what my daughter was doing then, and yeah, take it into my paintings. That's experiences does happen. I mean, with this book, I used to live in a flat not too far from here, and we always had like hedgehogs outside. um so we would hear them at night, um making noise and things outside our, like, near our window. So that kind of what kind of inspired this book. It was me thinking about, oh, this hedgehog, and then we had a kiwi fruit, so I offered like a kiwi fruit to the hedgehog. It wasn't really taken by it, but um it was just interesting to that kind of inspired what this book was. um
Dang, that's awesome.
yeah, and
And I mean, it's like her, raising her, like, did that inspire you too to kind of create children books and stuff like that too? Because like you want to have like a kind of like a path
hmm.
for your daughter to kind of see and follow potentially, right?
Yeah, I'd say it pushes me further into it, because
Cool.
I was always wanting like to do that kind of thing before we had my daughter. um but that kind of pushes me more to that kind of thing. Before I
Hmm.
had my daughter, I was kind of experimenting here and there, doing creatures, um and doing other things as well. I did do a children's book before that, but it kind of pushed me more. It'd be like, oh, I really actually want to do a bit more books here, So I'd say, yeah,
Hmm.
it's helpful. One day I'll be able to experience actually reading these books to my daughter, and
That's awesome.
one day maybe when she grows up, she might actually be like, "No, you can't do this in this book," and it'd be, or that doesn't look right, or it would be interesting to see that happen too, um, to get feedback on this
That's
character
nice,
isn't
man.
working here, or something like that, or I don't understand this, because um, and also another thing for me is I've been struggling with English since I've been like young, really young.
Hmm.
and
Well,
also
where are you from originally?
New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand, but
Like we're
but
all like,
why do you have a
it's
go
I
ahead, sorry.
guess it's just you know, me growing up. It's just something that I developed because I was also bad at handwriting, um,
Hmm.
and you know, with that I was, you know, I didn't really start talking till I was 5. You know, I had that kind of slow talking kind of rate, and they were trying to teach me how to talk while I was young, so I was missing out on a lot of how to write, and
I man, I can kind of relate, man, because like I was going back and forth at one point in the early parts of my childhood
mm,
from Japan and the U.S. and I had broken English, man.
mm,
Like I would kind of speak like Yoda. So, but yeah, I mean, that's all. I mean, now here you are. You're gonna write a book. You're gonna
yeah,
write a child's story, and you're kind of like conquering what has been a struggle for you, and that's really awesome.
yeah. It's something that took me a while. You know, I always, even through high school, I struggled through doing like English exams and things like that, like writing things. Um, and then through, you know,
Same here.
university, I just started to actually be like, well, I like, you know, creating children's books. I'm gonna actually write a book, and it was the most challenging thing. Sometimes I was like, I'm never gonna get this done, but you know, I had such a great team there that I could be like, can you read this and tell me what's wrong with it? And you know, there's so many people there that could help me develop my skills. Um,
Dang, that's awesome. I mean, you showcasing your vulnerability like that, and then like becoming better because of it. Like that's really, man, awesome, dude. Really.
for yourself, have you had any life experiences that helped you along the way?
I I've had many, man. I mean, I
Mm,
can't. I mean, but I mean, I guess to maybe link up to what you shared with me, it's like there was definitely a vulnerability of like opening up. You know, I've definitely had a lot of like struggles as a person to connect because I didn't really have I had a positive experience with my immediate family, but I also had a very harsh disconnect. And I think that kind of came from the fact that my biological father died when I was young, and I was very fortunate to have a wonderful stepfather. And he's not even a stepfather to me. He's my dad.
mm,
But there was like another part of me that couldn't be really explained by anybody, couldn't be really guided by anyone. So I think that kind of is why I kind of was drawn into drawing characters as a kid, drawing and doing art, because it was my way of kind of expressing that I had a very difficult time doing as a child. So, and I think that's something that I'm constantly learning throughout my life. I'm here. I am. With I'm over in Salt Lake City, and I'm spending time with my family from my biological father's side, and I'm learning more about their traits, and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, like there's a lot of things that are genetic of how I am that they are, and it's crazy to see. And yeah, I mean, I think that for kind of drawing parallels of your experience, like I think the moment when I start opening up, the moment that I've become more vulnerable, is where I start to really learn and develop as a person.
mm,
And it's difficult. It's difficult because it's like this part of you that you're afraid of and you don't want to show. And if you also been burned before by showcasing it, right?
yeah.
And it's like it's like you expect me now to share this. But if you don't, and if you keep it, it will never develop. And I think that's to kind of relate, or to kind of have to kind of showcase that experience that's similar to yours. Like, yeah, I mean, that is my experience, and that is my constant experience. I think that's something that I'm constantly growing on and developing. So yeah,
Mm,
I mean, and yeah, art has kind of been that thing where it's like you have to kind of be vulnerable for art
Yeah.
to really express something. Like it's like if there's something in front of you where it's like you want to create an image of like, oh, I want this perfect image and it looks like this and stuff like that. It looks so stale and it looks lifeless. And once you let go and you just put whatever's down on the page without being so, I guess, harsh on yourself or insecure or whatever is what's restricting you. That's when your art is speaking to people. So yeah, it has been an interesting journey, and I think it's still going to continue.
Yeah, that's great. You have awesome work here. It's been great chatting with you. Yeah, yeah. I'd love to have you in again one day, maybe.
Yeah.
Also, so yeah, everyone can go check out your work at artazi.artstation.com.
Mm-hmm. Or
And
artazi.net or Instagram or Twitter. I'm just kidding. But yeah.
yeah. Excuse me. All those other sites you said. Yeah, link in the description to your art station will be down there. Thanks everyone for joining, whether you joined on Twitch or on YouTube. I really do appreciate all the people that are liking and sharing and commenting as well. It's been great having all you guys there. Any last things you would like to say?
Oh man, you put me on the spot like that. Well, I mean, I think with the cultural climate how it is right now, I think things need to be seen in a very contextual way. We can be so oppressive with ideas or a method or all that stuff. Like, this is the way it works. This is the way it works. But I think we could practice being a little bit more open and just hear other people's experiences and knowing when moments like that, maybe that's how you can handle them. But ultimately, it's our own experiences to have, and I think we should be respectful of that. So, yeah, that's my final thought.
Awesome, that sounds great. Yeah, see everyone, keep drawing. See you in the next video. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.